Hey, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Chris Rose Rotation, a production of Jomboy Media. And this is usually the time where I introduce my co-host, one of the 6 active ball players that's out there. But because of a scheduling snafu, we're going to welcome in a guy. He's still, in my opinion, he's still kind of active because he just retired a week ago after a dozen years in the show. It is Neil Walker. And what are we joining you from your do you have a locker room going on behind you? What's happening there?
Yeah, I went a little bit over the top of the set. I got to be honest, Chris, but you get a little nostalgic when you dig through the laundry basket of personal and past baseball and sports attire. So I hope it's not too much.
Okay, well, is it okay if I add to the wardrobe collection over your left shoulder? Is that all right?
Yeah. Go
okay. Usually I save this for the end of the interview with a guest. We give you a parting gift for being a part of the process on the Chris Rose Rotation.
Love that.
I'm going to be sending you one of these.
Oh, no, hold on. No.
For those of you that are audio only right now, I am wearing a Cleveland Browns t-shirt because Neil grew up in Pittsburgh, and every time we've seen each other, he's been talking shit to me about his goddamn Steelers. What happened in the last game they played, Walk?
I think I think the refs had something to do with it, and the wet field, I think, and hold on, I'm trying to chalk up as many excuses as I can. That's painful that you're showing these clips. By the way, this is just, yeah. But like I told you before, I'm a very spoiled Steeler fan, and I'll admit that. I'm a very spoiled Steeler Penguin fan for sure. Obviously, the Pirate stuff that's well documented, but. I hold my sports teams, my Steelers and Penguins on a pretty high pedestal. So, I'd be remiss to say that it might be the Browns' time now.
You are so fortunate. I did not get a hold of your cell phone number until after that game, like after you retired, because if I had it, I would have been killing you for about 48 hours straight.
Don't worry. I have enough Browns buddies that did that work for you.
Way to get it going. All right. So we take a deep breath. You are now moving on to the next phase of your life. Was it hard to call quits?
Yeah, obviously it was. I think over the course of the last 2 years. Last year was just a strange year and really left a bad taste, I think, a lot of people's mouths. But, the year before with Miami, I had a good run. I got a good opportunity on a young team and really tried to, help usher in the next wave of baseball players down there. My time in Philadelphia was great. But to be honest with you, when the universal DH went out the door, that was a tough sign for guys like myself, because especially on our team, we had basically 7 of the 8 guys in the offensive lineup were everyday players that never came out of the lineup against lefties, righties. So I'm sitting there several games in, and I'm going, okay, I can imagine how this is going to play out. If I had to guess, I'm going to get Max Scherzer, I'm going to get Jacob deGrom. I'm gonna get every day game, and that's what happened. And I think when that starts to happen in a guy's career, the writing is starting to get jogged down on the wall per se. So, but I have no regrets. That's the one thing that I feel very fortunate about. I got to live my dream and get to the big leagues in my hometown. Like, I don't think many people can say that, but obviously, and so my journey was just so great. I mean. 100-win teams, 100-loss teams, great, good years, bad years, in-between years. So I've seen a lot in this game, and I feel really, really fortunate.
Well, so take me back to draft night. I mean, here you are. You're a projected first-round pick, stud athlete out of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. When they call your name and it is the team you grew up loving, what the hell went through your mind?
It was crazy. I mean, we had a state playoff game that night, and so there was a lot of people at the house, and we were at that time in 2004. They were still doing it on the computer, so we're all hanging around the computer, making sure nobody's on the phone. And we had an idea that if it got to 11, it got to number 11 with the Pirates, there was a good chance that they were going to take me. I think the Orioles picked 9th, and the Cardinals picked, I think, 14 or 15 that year. and they were all three of those teams were the ones that I thought were going to be were going to be interested. So we got to Pittsburgh. They picked it. The house erupted. So many different emotions going through my mind. But I had to strap it on and play that night, and I gobbled up a loss. The last game, the second to last game I ever pitched in, just serving up 83-mile-an-hour meatballs right down the middle after having the draft day thing. So it was, that was a story in itself. But really the story just from start to finish of my careers, especially the piece in Pittsburgh, was so cool.
I mean, you went to Three Rivers as a kid.
Yep.
Like, do you even remember the early 90s, Bonds, Bonilla, Van Slyke, Jimmy Leland smoking heaters in the dugout? Or were you too young for that?
No. I remember 92, 93 were the first years that I remember. So I remember going to Three Rivers Stadium, watching Andy Van Slyke run down balls on the turf out there. I thought it was the greatest thing of all time. Obviously, Bonds was early in his career there. Bobby Bonilla was kind of in the middle toward the end of his career, and he was a switch hitter and something that I was thought was the most amazing thing ever, and kind of had a big influence on me. Jimmy Leland, who still lives in the area, you see him all the time, and it's just the same old with him. His stories are incredible. 92 All-Star game right here.
94.
Frank
94
Thomas.
All-Star game.
Frank Thomas autograph. I know it's hard to see.
Yeah.
Frank Thomas autograph. It's still in decent shape too, if you can believe that. So
that's awesome.
I think Griffey was in that All-Star game. I was sitting in peanut heaven with my two brothers. Didn't care. So that was like my earliest memories. I was 7, 8 years old. That I was like, okay, this is for sure what I want to do, and nobody's going to stand in my way.
So did you make it the entire time? Because that game went like 13 or 14 innings. I think Fred McGriff tied it on like a huge home run.
Yeah.
And then Tony Gwynn scored the game-winning run.
Yeah.
A really close play at the plate. And Pudge Rodriguez was like, you could see he was like a little pissed about the play at the plate. Now, did you make it the whole way?
No. Because like I said, I was 7 or 8. My brothers were 10 and 12. I think we made it to like the 9th or 10th inning, and we were sitting in peanut heaven, and my old man was like, we gotta get out of here. Because we were there probably on the game day at if the game was at 7, we were probably there at 3:30 as soon as the gates opened, just getting down to the field as close as we could to get autographs. And I think my brother got a Ken Griffey Jr. autograph, and I got the Frank Thomas one, and I was like, I'm good. This is great. So
But you had a chance to meet major leaguers, did you not, throughout your childhood? Because your dad played in the show primarily for the Expos for a handful of years.
Yeah, actually, that's crazy you say that, because I never really thought about that. Obviously, my dad played in the 70s. My oldest brother, who's 8 years older than me, he was just being born right around the time that he was getting out of the game, and I'm the last of 4. So I didn't get to be a part of much of that, going to spring training, all of that, obviously, but I can still remember to this day. This is one of the coolest moments. I don't think I've ever told this story, by the way. Montreal Expos I think it's Montreal Expos. It might have been the New York Mets coming to town to play the Pirates. I must have been 8 or 9. Gary Carter comes out to the house because my dad and him played in Montreal together at the very end of his career and my dad's career, very beginning of Gary Carter's career. And I will never forget that. I mean, in the front yard, he wasn't playing catch or anything because it was early on. I don't remember if he went down and brought him back. But this story just kind of hit me. That's crazy. And I remember him being down there and being like, I want to be a catcher in the big leagues. I want to play baseball at the next level. And then full circle, before he unfortunately passed, Gary Carter, he was the manager of the Futures game in 2006 that I got to play in Pittsburgh. So, I mean, came almost full circle. And obviously the Futures game, it wasn't like he was my minor league coach or something along those lines, but I was like, this is incredible. I can remember to the day 17 years ago when this guy was in my front yard, and he played such a major role in my life, just in general, watching him go about his business.
All right. So did you go up to him during the Futures game and reintroduce yourself?
I didn't have to. I mean, the connection he and my dad had, they stayed somewhat in touch over the course of the years in the late 80s, early 90s, and then mid 90s. So Yeah, I remember I didn't have his number or anything, but got into the clubhouse and like he just gave me this big smile and gave a big hug. And that was, unfortunately, like kind of toward the end for him where he was going through his cancer treatments and whatnot. But yeah, what a cool moment for me for sure.
It's unreal. It really is. Tell everybody who was in your dad's wedding, your parents' wedding.
So Steve Garvey, which I don't know if I've told this story either. So Steve Garvey and my dad played at the same high school, Chamberlain High School, in just outside of Tampa, and he was the best man in my dad's wedding. And I ran into him one of my last years with the Pirates. He just so happened to be in LA, and I got to meet him. And it was the first and only time that I ever met him and got a picture with him. And I was like, wow. I mean, and my dad was a first rounder. I think the year that he got drafted, 68, 69, I think there were still 2 drafts at the time, but he was a first rounder. And obviously the career Steve Garvey had was just incredible. So like there's a lot of different kind of stories that roll into one. And I'm drawing a blank. The guy, pitcher for the Astros that just came back after having Tommy John last year.
Lance McCullers.
Lance McCullers' dad. I think Lance McCullers actually went to Chamberlain High School, or his dad. So that was like obviously a hotbed in the what would have been the 60s, in, just outside of Tampa. So pretty neat. He took me around. Like that's where Darryl Strawberry played. And you don't think much about it when you're in spring training in Florida or whatnot, but I always got that opportunity to go home, to go to my dad's home and kind of see his side full circle, because we obviously don't live in Florida at all. We live in Pittsburgh. So
I am curious, Neil, and I know it's sensitive, but you're wearing 21.
Yeah,
Roberto Clemente, and people who are baseball fans know the story probably by now that your dad was going to be on that mission. That unfortunately, where we lost Roberto Clemente.
Right.
Was your dad ever comfortable discussing it, being open with you, or is that something that he just never touched and you just knew about it and we go about our daily lives?
Yeah, you hear somebody that being the son of a major league or whatever, you have a 2-year career, 5-year career, 10-year career. Like I heard all the stories, right? And this one I think was just larger than life. It was just something that he talked about it with me, with my siblings, my 2 brothers, my sister. He'd tell the story. He'd go to events and tell the story, and he'd go to Engine House 2021 down in downtown Pittsburgh, where obviously the Clemente Museum is incredible. If you ever get a chance to go, for anybody that's listening and you're a baseball fan, take the time to go. It's incredible. But I remember probably by about the time I was in high school, 14, 15 years old, finally that story set in, and I was like, oh, okay. So what you're telling me is that like you weren't there saying, hey, have a good trip, we'll see you when you get back. Like you were literally there, and a lot of guys were helping load stuff. And initially it was, hey, we're gonna have room, or we should have room, and or you guys should be able to at least sit on boxes for this flight, drop it off, and we're coming back to enjoy New Year's Day, basically. And no, he was steps away from getting on that plane. And you think about the life and career of Roberto Clemente and what he meant to so many, and it's just an incredible story. One that I've never told that story without getting goosebumps, including right now. But just and I've been documented, kind of telling the story about in 2014, I believe it was, Clemente Day in Pittsburgh, playing the Red Sox. Clay Buchholz is pitching. Vera Clemente and her boys are at the field before the game. Early in the day, you go to a local school, you promote the game of baseball, but you also teach lessons about Roberto Clemente's life and everything that he encompassed and all that. I think my second at bat of the game hit my 21st homer over the 21-foot Roberto Clemente wall in right field, right? Like you can't script that. You can't write that up any better. And I remember it was really the only time that I hit a home run, that I hit it, and as it's getting out, I'm touching first base, and it's not like the euphoric run. It was like a whole wave of emotion just rolled over me, because I was like, this is too weird. And my dad's name, my dad goes as Tom, but his name is Robert Thomas Walker. Well, if you look at the bust in Cooperstown of Roberto Clemente, he actually used his mother's, I believe his mother's maiden name, or however they do it in Puerto Rico, and his name is Roberto Clemente Walker. So my dad's first name and his name basically are the same exactly. I mean, if there was ever a script of something along those lines and just kind of crazy stories, and if you didn't believe in some of these things like you do now, type of moment.
Well, thank you for taking a stroll. I know it's not easy. I mean, I know it's. How often do we say, now that we're dads and
right.
we go about our daily lives, and you might be having a crappy day or whatever, and
right.
We take a step back and we're like, God, we are so thankful. But you have to go through life, and your dad goes through life saying how thankful, right?
And that's the thing that he's gotten to the point where when he tells this story, he gets emotional, but I think it's therapeutic for him. You know what I mean? And he, at that time, he hadn't. None of my brothers were born at that time. My oldest brother wasn't born at that time. He wasn't married yet to my mom, but like. The sheer fact that somebody was that close to death per se is just like, you count your blessings. And I tried to almost every time I came out of that dugout on the third base side in Pittsburgh and was running to second base for the national anthem, I tried my hard. I probably did it on 98% of the time. I would just try to give like a little hat tip to the 21 model out there, because it may sound corny, but I literally owe my life to the man. And just the things that he stood for, and you see the reaction, and now last year with the Phillies was the first time that I got to wear 21 on Clemente Day, and it wasn't super advertised, and the Latin guys were just, especially the Latin guys, but everybody was going crazy. Can I wear 21? Can I wear 21? Can I wear 21? And a lot of guys didn't get their jerseys in on time, but I remember coming close to that. I had heard that you might have had the opportunity, so I jumped on it. I said, you know what? I'm going to get an opportunity to do this. Like, what better time? And that was 3 or 4 days before I got let go from the Phillies too. So like, I never got another chance to do that. And I feel so grateful and so fortunate that, for that whole effect of Roberto Clemente on my life.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
What is it like playing for your hometown team? Do your boys, like, that's their team, and you played on some shitty teams, dude.
I know.
So were you hearing it, or did they never bring it up? Or were you like, can you try harder? Can you hit more home runs for us? Like, stop sucking.
Yeah. I mean, there's like two levels of it, right? So the first couple of years, anybody that I ever played baseball, basketball, football with in high school or was in school with, like, they were trying to get in touch with me, just try to figure out a way to get tickets to the game, right? And I'm like, for crying out loud, we're losing 100 games a year. Like, you can get tickets for $15 and go move down into the better seats. Like, and then I got a hold on it. And I was like, I gotta get a hold of this. I'm not spending all this money every single year on tickets outside of my family. And then roll it into like 2012. We have a pretty good first half of the year, and we start to add some pieces. And going into 13 in spring training, we were like, wow, we got an opportunity to do some special stuff. And so, I finally, by that point, right around that time, I got a new phone. I got a second new phone, like, kept the circle and the outer circle and a little bit out of the outer circle in. And then I had to like draw the line in the sand. But no, I mean, my trips to the local grocery store here, Giant Eagle, like, when I was playing, I would take trips to the local grocery store when we were playing bad. And it was like, what's going on with you guys? You stink. We're not coming to games. And then we started to win, and like the same people working at the grocery store were like, hey, can I get some tickets? Hey, can you hook me up with some tickets? Like, hey, where were you 2 years ago when we were 57 and 100 and whatever, And so that was an interesting turnaround. But like when that 2013 year, when we got to the wild card game in Pittsburgh, like, I mean, that was a culmination of 20 years of pain just packed into one stadium. You could feel it. And anybody that was on the fence of being a Pirate fan that like got off board from 2002 to 2010, and then 11, 12, they started to see signs of life. Like everybody was back on board. And, you know, I call it the Steeler effect, right? Like, you know, people are going to follow the Steelers regardless, you know, good, bad, in between. But like, we were finally up to snuff to that level to where we knew that there was nobody left on, you know, on the fence by the time when we got good. Everybody was on board in the city.
Yeah, that was a great night, dude. I can only imagine, as a guy who grew up rooting for that team, to play in the first playoff game there in over 20 years. And it was like the whole blackout and the Johnny Cueto dropping the ball and all that. I mean, that must have been the most fun you've ever had playing baseball.
Nobody, you know, I would try to explain to teammates and stuff, and everybody has nostalgia and you know, pride for their hometown and whatnot. And I was just like, guys, you don't understand. Like, for any of you that have been in this organization, like, you know, Andrew McCutcheon, we were in the organization around the same time. So we had a good grasp of where things were, where they've been, where they are, where they could be. But guys that had just gotten into the organization, they were just like, you know, I don't understand. You know, I don't understand what the big deal is. We're winning games. Like that's a good thing. And I'm like, no, like you don't understand. People are going to go absolutely insane. And Rose, there were people. I remember the last out of the game of that. You're walking off the field, and I'm kind of looking back, just taking it all in. And I'm seeing people on the bridge, the Clemente Bridge over dead center field, jumping in the water, jumping off the bridge into the water. And you know, we're not talking 60, 70 feet. We're talking probably 30, 40 feet, but still. Like people lost their mind. And one of the other balls I have in here is the 80. So this, and a lot of people that, especially people that have been, you know, kind of fortunate with their fans and teams and whatnot, it says 82. And this is from 2014 or 2013, September 9th. Yu Darvish versus Garrett Cole. Garrett Cole's first was up at the end of the year. Texas 1-0 win. That secured the 82nd game for us that year and stopped the 20-game losing streak, right? And
20-year streak of losing seasons.
Yes, over. Yeah. Because September 9th, win the 82nd game. I get the last out of the game, ground ball to me at second, throw it to first. And I think it might have been Lyle Overbay or somebody at first. And I said, give me the ball. And you're like, well, how are you not going to give it to your pitcher that just closed out the game? And I said, I don't give a crap. Give me the damn ball. and I get inside and like the dust settles and everybody's happy, obviously, but it's still early September. And he comes up to me and he's like, why the hell did you want that ball? And I'm like, dude, you don't understand. This is the 82nd win today. And he's like, oh yeah, okay, well that makes sense. And I was like, you have no idea what this ball means. And that's not the exact ball, but it's an border ball and that whole night. So like, you know, that's something that, you know, there's moments in your career that you won't forget. And that seems so minuscule just because it's like, oh, well, congratulations. You won, you know, you won your 82nd game. You're not going to go under 500. But
right.
It meant so much more to the Pirates fan base and community.
Yeah, that's cool. True or false? 2010 season, you lived at home.
That's true. Yeah. Didn't make the team out of spring training. Got called up in mid-May, was asked to play second base, which I had no idea how to do that, and stood out there for the 4.5 months just praying that the ball didn't get hit to me, just looking over my shoulder, wondering if I'm going to get called down. So it was like, all right, I'll stay at home for a short period of time just in case I get sent down and I don't go rent a place. And then it became, hey, mom likes making me breakfast in the morning. And I mean, I get downstairs and it would be like dad reading the paper about last night's game and asking me why I had a 3-pitch strikeout in the 8th inning, and mom's making breakfast. And it honestly, it was the greatest thing of all time because it was like, you know, I had no duties and responsibilities, but you know, I was a 23, 24-year-old kid at that time, and obviously wasn't married. I didn't, you know, had a girlfriend at the time, but she was living somewhere else. So I was like, this is the best thing of all time. But now looking back on it, I catch so much slack for it, but it's like, you know, whatever. I played in New York for 3 years. If we're talking about rent being cheap or something, like, you know, they got it all back within 3 years when I went to New York.
So, did your teammates know that you were living at home at the time, or did you keep that hush hush?
I tried to keep it as hush hush, and I think at some point, maybe like the second month I was up, I like it slipped on an interview or something. Like, oh, it's so great that I'm able to play here in front of my hometown fans and my friends and family, and to stay, to stay at the house and whatnot. And I was like, oh no, this got out, and the ribbing started then. But like I said, I didn't care, and that was the only year that I did it. I was like, all right, I had a good year. It's time to move up in the world.
You're lucky that you had a girlfriend at the time. Could you imagine if you're rolling out in the bars and here's hotshot Neil Walker, who grew up in Pittsburgh and is now playing for the hometown team? Hey, you want to go kick it? Yeah, we can't go to my place. Why? You have a roommate? Yeah, a couple of them. They're a little older.
Yeah, you're right. I actually never thought of it that way, but I'm glad that scenario never came around.
Oh, that would have been great. Oh my God. All right. So there's a couple of great athletes from Pittsburgh, Arnold Palmer grew up in Latrobe, Aaron Donald is just a monster, and then there's Neil Walker, who played in arguably the greatest state championship football game ever played in the Steel City under 16 inches of snow.
Yep. This is
right.
True.
They still talk about this one, don't they?
That's great.
Look at that catch. Way to go, Double Deuce.
This was the last football game I ever played in. And I knew going into this game that it was, this was going to be the last one. I had no plans of trying to play football at the next level or whatever, but we're playing this team from just outside of Hershey, and we're in Pittsburgh at the time. It's a 3-hour flight or 3-hour drive, and they're like, "Are we really going to play this game?" And they're like, "Yeah, we're going to play it." And I mean, look at it. It snowed 4, 5, 6 inches during the game, but somehow we got it in. Somehow it wasn't as sloppy as you would imagine from a high school team playing in these conditions. And the game was decided by a blocked extra point in double overtime. So that's how my football career ended.
Did you cry?
I think that was one of the sports moments that I did cry. Yeah. I never cried on the basketball court. There was maybe one time that I cried in the minor leagues when I was like, this shit is too hard. I don't want to do this anymore, which I think everybody goes through. And then that. So basically two moments in my career, like in the moment on field breaking down. And that was one of them.
I've talked to a ton of guys, like CC Sabathia told me after 3 days, he wanted to quit. He called his mom and said, "Can I give my signing, but do I have to give my signing bonus back if I quit?" Did you almost ever get to that point? Because it sounds like almost every major leaguer does.
For me, it was okay. So it was 2005 going to 2006. So it was really my second professional season, and I tore a ligament in my wrist in November, and it ended up being like a 4.5 month rehab or something. So I wasn't able to work out in the off season. I didn't have a spring training, and then I jumped into extended spring training. And I was scheduled to play in Lynchburg, Virginia at the time, and I was in just horrendous shape because they at the time the wrist thing, they put you in a cast up to here, and I'm sitting there like this for 4 or 5 weeks before they saw it off down here, and then they saw it off down here. And so I remember playing in Lynchburg and just being like, I have zero power. I'm supposed to be catching, but I have no strength in my wrist still, so they let me catch once or twice a week. And I was struggling, and I was like, where in the world am I in the middle of Virginia, even though I was fairly close to home? And I just hit a breaking point. And I remember playing one game, and I was just like, I can't do this anymore. I can't. And luckily I had, people like my dad and my brother, my oldest brother was just getting out of the minor leagues. He was at the higher levels with Detroit or Baltimore at the time. And we've all been through it. And you just have to take a time out, just calm down, go shower it off, go relax, talk about it with people, and come back the next day. And if you keep feeling the same things over and over and over again, then maybe you should kind of adjust and take a better look at your career. But almost every single guy I talked to has had a similar moment in one way, shape, or the other.
All right. So with that being said, you make it. What was your welcome to the majors moment? Was it you were on the field, like, and you saw somebody who you were like, I can't believe I'm doing the same thing that guy's doing?
Oh man. Well, I think my first at bat, I got a pinch hit at bat my very first game up, I think, which was like September 4th or 5th or 6th or something like that in Cincinnati. Oh, you got the clip, of course. And I hit a ball and I'm like, oh, this is a hit. And then I looked at second base and I was like, oh, okay, maybe I shouldn't have hit it near the perennial Gold Glove second baseman and Brandon Phillips. And this guy makes a play like it was, like it was nothing from his knees, toss it over, and I'm like, oh, okay, we're in the big leagues now. I'm gonna have to be a little bit better to figure out a way to stay up here because that play is not being made in the minor leagues under any circumstances. So, but he played against. I can remember like getting drafted, and Jason Kendall was a huge a guy that I watched because I was a Pittsburgh kid that caught. And so I remember seeing him when I got drafted in the clubhouse when they kind of bring in, do that whole hoopla. So that was like a wow moment. And then, playing against guys my first couple years in 9, 10, and 11, like Roy Halladay and Cliff Lee and some of these just huge name guys that, have had preposterous careers. It's like bigger than life. It's like the first time you go to a new stadium. When you go to Dodger Stadium for the first time as a player, you're just like awestruck. And, you kind of get over the hump after you do it. After one series and another series and another series, and you're like, okay, this is part of the gig now. But then, like at the end of your career, you really appreciate exactly the things that you appreciated at the beginning of your career.
I love it though. That's the romantic part of it all, and I love it that it happens. That it will always happen in this game. Like I've watched batting practice thousands of times. I've been lucky enough to do that in my professional career. I never take it for granted. I love listening to the sounds. I love watching you guys work. Every little part of it, I love.
Yeah. No, I never get you never get. I don't think you ever get really tired of the routine. Sometimes it can get monotonous. You can get bored, but like you have an internal clock. Even when I'm in my day to day now as a recently retired guy, like I'll have this internal clock. Like, oh, it's almost 4 o'clock. Like it's almost this is BP at home time. We got another hour if we're on the road. You just have this internal clock, and your body adjusts to it as the season goes along. And maybe I'm sure you lose it at some point, but I haven't even lost it yet. So I'll let you know when I do.
So we talked earlier about your draft night, and you said that ended up being your second last pitching performance ever.
Yeah.
You want to relive your last pitching performance?
The only reason that I would want to relive it is the fact that I got a 0 beside my name in the ERA book. But for anybody that thinks they can get up on that bump or they want to choose somebody out for not throwing strikes, I mean, it's the most terrifying thing of all time. This is the first time I'd ever been on a big league mound or professional mound, and I'm just scared shitless out there right now. And my mechanics are just horrendous. I mix in a little bit of a slider here, which is just horrible. This guy swings at a ball at his neck. I think that's Austin Hayes, and he catches his ball, and I'm just like, all right, I'm done. I can go tell my old man that I got a better ERA than him. My uncle, I got a better ERA than him, because this is never happening again, whether I play this game for 2 more days or 2 more years. So check it off the list. 1 walk, 2 flyouts, 1 whip. I'm good.
Well, how does that actually come to fruition? Like, does Girardi come get you? And is he like, hey, listen, is this something you'd be interested in? Do you go up to him and you're like, hey, listen, the career's winding down. I want to crack at it?
It's actually exactly how it happened. So the night before that actual game, we had played, 9 games in 7 days or something like that. Our bullpen was thin. We got blown out the first game of the series. They scored a bunch of runs. We used 3 or 4 or 5 relievers. And I almost got in that one and he did exactly what he said. He came down and there were like 2 of us that were still on the bench. He goes, are either of you capable of pitching? And my first thought was, hell no, get the hell out of here. But then I was like, you know what? If this may be my last chance to ever do it, I was like, all right, Skip, I'll do it. I'm game, but don't ask me to do it again. So if it's going to be tonight, let's do it. And I was like 1 out away from going in that game. And it just kind of rolled into the next day because we had 5 games in a row after that. We got to the 6th or 7th inning, whatever that score was. he gets down again and gives me like a side look, and I'm like, I'll go throw some in the cage inside and get ready. And come out, and there you have it. I mean, there was, I don't know if there was nothing more terrifying than that. First at bat in the big leagues was cake in comparison to pitching on a big league mound. I'll tell you that right now.
That's awesome. By the way, my 15-year-old is throwing 78. So you guys are doing great together.
I topped out at 81. I mean, he's
that's true. He's got a little ways to go.
No, as a full-blown adult. I mean, he might be throwing 86 next year as a 16-year-old.
Yeah, well, he doesn't have you. He doesn't have your guns, but he might have you on the height. So we're getting there. I'm not even so sure he's mine. I love him like he's. I got 2 sons, one that's 6'4" and one that's 6'1". You know, I don't know.
They got a good mailman out there in California.
Yeah, right. Be nice. Be nice just because my Browns kicked your Steelers' ass. All right, a few things.
Yeah.
Just off the top of your head, best pitcher you ever faced?
Yeah, I mean, Roy Halladay, Clayton Kershaw, and DeGrom. I mean, pick one. You can any of those guys at any point in their career or my career when I would face. Roy Halladay was in the end of his career, but he was so crafty. You saw nothing that started over the plate. Kershaw was in the heart of his career, in the prime of his career when you were facing him. It was just a nightmare. 94, 95, 96 at the top of the zone and a breaking ball that you literally don't have any chance to hit. And then DeGrom he sits out there and he could like lip read you. Hey, here comes a slider, bro. And you could be like, hey, thanks. And you're still gonna miss it or ground out the first base. It's not even fair. I mean, how somebody's velo can uptick basically 1 mile an hour going into his 30s like it has every single year for the past 6-7 years is just not fair. And I was lucky to watch him play on a first-hand basis, and it was just incredible because he would, he added, he subtracted, he knew how to. You say people know how to pitch, but you're talking like you'll see him throw 3 or 4 different sliders during a game. You'll see the 92 mile an hour slider that doesn't move a lot. It moves like cutter. You'll see 87 that moves a whole bunch. You'll see a little backdoor one to steal a strike. And then you'll see one that's just flat that cuts in on you. And he's mixing that in with 97 to 101. I mean, his arsenal is just I'm going to have a hard time ever saying that there's going to be anybody that I ever faced that was better than Jacob DeGrom. And I truly mean that. And I faced Roy Halladay, Cliff Lee, some of these guys at the end of their career. But it's honestly a joke. You go into a hitter's meeting essentially when DeGrom's on the mound, and you just throw the bats on the ground and say, all right, just take your hacks up there, boys. Let's see if we can muster a few and keep them off the board.
Okay. With that being said, he's a long way from even winning 100 games, let alone like 150.
Yeah.
Are we watching a Hall of Fame pitcher, even if he doesn't get to say 120 wins?
I have no doubts. Yeah. And you can argue all you want about wins, losses as a starting pitcher now in the game of baseball, but like there's always one guy that's just notorious for not, getting the shaft every time he runs out there. And this just so happens to be him. I haven't seen, I'd love to see what his numbers look like in non-decisions or, losses where he gives up 2 or 3 runs. It's gotta be ridiculous, but like, he can't control that, but you may be right. I mean, he may not even get to 300 wins. I mean, it may be impossible for him to get to.
No. 300. He's 6 months younger than Clayton Kershaw. He's like 32.
Yeah,
you're right. He's short of 100 wins, way short of 100 wins. So I'm just saying, as a guy who played behind him and faced him as well, as much as you did, when you stepped in the batter's box, you're like, see you in Cooperstown, bro.
Yeah, 100%, no question. I would say that till my last breath that there's nobody more difficult in the game of baseball in this era that at least that I played on. Call it 2010 to 2020. There's nobody more dominant in my opinion, and that's all the respect in the world to Clayton Kershaw, all the respect in the world to Adam Wainwright, all the respect in the world to any of these guys that have done it for so long. I don't see Jake slowing down. Like, okay, what's 80% of DeGrom? 93 to 97 with with a riding fastball, that's still going to play. You know, he just has to get his boys to score him some more runs. Like if he's going to get up over the century mark.
Yeah, I mean, he hits over 500 every year, so what the hell? He can keep doing it himself.
Yeah,
like Little League. He and Ohtani are playing Little League out there. It's awesome. It's a blast. I always loved having you on, Millar and I did on Intentional Talk. You were always a great interview, a lot of fun.
Thank you. I always enjoy coming on with you, Chris. I appreciate it.
But do you remember what happened the year in New York?
Oh yeah. How could I forget that? I mean, that was one of the first things I thought about when that day ended. You know what I mean? So for anybody that probably doesn't know the story, I go on IT. It's the best. And just roast and rose about his brownies pretty much the entire time. I don't really want to talk about baseball. No, whatever. I think my second or third at bat, I think I'm some crafty young 22-year-old and lay down a bunt, which was a beaut, and get about 3/4 of the way down, and all I hear is just an absolute blowout in my and I thought it was my knee. Oh no. And I can't help but laugh because I've only seen that a couple of times, but literally I thought that somebody was in the stadium and just absolutely shot me in the back of my leg, and my hamstring completely blew out. Missed 6 weeks, but you guys needed to start like you always said, hey, this guy went deep. He was on the show today. He went deep.
All right,
why did you have this dude went on the IL with a blown out hammy?
No joke. So Millar and I are sitting front row watching the game that night, and we look at each other and we're like, oh shit. Jay Bruce comes out of the dugout and he walks up to us and he goes, fuck your IT mojo.
He never told me he said that. That's hilarious.
We're like, hey, tell Neil as he's icing down in the back, we're really sorry. That's our fault.
It was better that you didn't have DeGrom on that day and he flew out. It was much better than it was me. Trust me.
I still feel terrible this day about it. Oh my God. All right. One more thing before we get out of here. Don Kelly, former utility guy, and now he's a coach. Where's he coaching these days? Is he in Detroit or Pittsburgh?
No, he's with the Buccos.
Okay, good. All right. That's your brother-in-law, right?
Yeah. So he's from just south of the city. His sister and my sister are the same age, and they both played basketball against each other growing up. And then my sister went to Wagner College on Staten Island, and Donnie's sister went to Quinnipiac. So they were both in and so they were both incredibly talented. I mean, they both were 1,000-point scorers in both high school and college. And my sister went and played 1 year over in the Irish Super League after she graduated college. And I think Donnie's sister played a year or two, maybe in Romania or one of those places. But basically, those two knew each other. My oldest brother and Donnie played in the Tigers organization for 3 or 4 years, played together in Erie. And one last quick story, which my oldest brother, if you ever got to talk to him, I mean, to this day, he still wants to kill Donnie. We're in Erie. Anybody that's been to Erie, you've got the arena in left field, right? And you got the stadium pointing out there. Well, right behind the center field wall is the parking lot, outdoor parking lot. After a Friday night game, my sister, which Erie and Pittsburgh are 2.5, maybe 3 hours away from each other. My sister all of a sudden took an interest in baseball, which she couldn't have given two shits about baseball our entire life. But me and my two brothers didn't care, didn't want to go to them, not interested. All of a sudden, she wants to go to see Erie Seawolves games during the summer. She's in college, and we come to find out this particular night, Friday or Saturday night, my sister goes up, watches the game, tells my brother, "I got to get back. I got to do something tomorrow morning." So she leaves, and my brother had a friend at the game, hung out at the ballpark. Donnie takes off, it books it after the game, showers real quick. Well, within that 10, 15 minutes, my brother's walking back to the locker room, and as he's getting to the center field wall, he sees in the parking lot my brother and my sister and Donnie getting into a car and going out to have dinner, whatever. And the way the story is told to me is that the next day in the clubhouse, my brother, who was a couple years older than him, no joke, they had to restrain him. He was gonna kill him. He was gonna try to kill him. And this has been told to me from several third parties, and I believe it too. My brother is a lot different than I am as far as being hot-headed and so on and so forth. But that was a moment to where to this day in their 40s, my oldest brother still calls Donnie a sister stealer, because that's just something you do not do in a big league clubhouse and locker room. You do not go after a guy's sister unless you basically take your teammate's hand and interlock it with your sister's and say, you have my blessing from the start. It doesn't happen. And luckily I didn't have to be a part of that whole thing. But you can just imagine what that must have been.
That is unbelievable. Well, that one trumps the hot foot video I was going to show you about Donnie Kelly.
Yeah, of course. I mean, any video you have of him getting taken back, I mean, that's great. It's the best.
Oh my God. That is your brother still calls him a sister
stealer. Yeah. Been married for 15 something years, been together for 16, 17, 18 years. He still calls him a sister stealer.
That is beautiful. All right. One last thing before we let you go be a dad. We spin the wheel of moderately interesting things here. So let's pop that bad boy up, and here we go. Let's spin this thing. Double play. Okay. Who is going to play Neil Walker in the movie? Who do people say that you look like?
I've been told that I give off a little bit of a Keanu Reeves vibe.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's not bad. Like very much in the movie Speed.
Yeah. And I've had long hair maybe 3 years of my entire life, and a couple times when I was playing baseball and whatnot. And when I get the flow going, it really, and a little bit of a, let my beard grow in a little bit. I've literally had people ask me, are you Keanu Reeves? And obviously nowhere near as talented as Keanu Reeves, but
hey, he can't hit 94 on the black. So bro, you got him beat there. Doesn't matter. Hey, I like that call. This was fun getting to catch up, man. I really appreciate it on short notice. Thank you.
I look forward to seeing you. And if I'm going to save you a seat, maybe not this year or next year to a Browns Steelers game. One of the only places I ever almost got into a fight was at a Thursday night Browns game. Browns, horrible conditions. Browns, I think, won 6-3 or 3-0. You remember that one?
Oh yeah, when Eric Mangini was the coach and we sacked Roethlisberger like 10 times.
Oh, easy, 8, 9, 10 times. And I'm getting into the game and didn't wear anything Steelers. I knew that from the start. Don't even bother. And somebody was chirping at me just because I had a black jacket on. And they assumed I was a Steeler fan. I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. And he's like, get to the back. And I'm like, uh-oh, I'm gonna have to take care of this. And my boys are like, don't do it. And they restrained me, but that was the first and only time that I had ever gotten close to actually getting into a scrum. But I won't be going back to many Browns games in a while. So we'll have to figure out the best setup for Browns Steelers game.
Dude, I remember that game because I was actually calling a Titans game in Nashville that weekend. So I was out at a bar watching the Browns game on a Thursday night because, you get in town a little bit early. Yeah. And some Steelers fan wearing his jersey yelling at the TV. I was like, slow your roll, bro. And we started like chirping at each other across the bar. And the other guys are like, dude, you work for Fox Sports. Can you tone it down? Just let that guy be. And at the end of the night, he walked out. I was like, yeah, fuck you. Get out of here. See ya. Take the L.
No, you can't. I mean, you can't describe the hatred that goes on between. You can say Ravens, Browns, Ravens, Steelers. San Francisco and whoever, Seattle, but like It can get ugly. I've seen it get ugly. I tend to stay away from the games when the Browns come to town, but there are times I get sucked into it. Every time I go, it's just cringeworthy.
I hear you. Well, listen, bro, best to the family. Thank you so much for the time. I hope you had as much fun as I did.
I did, man. I appreciate you having me on, and thanks for always being so good to me over the years.
You got it.
Anytime we can catch up, you let me know.
I appreciate it. Shout out to our man Robbie Scirocco at the controls, as always. Neil Walker, be well, enjoy fatherhood, and being a good daddy and a husband. I'm sure you will be. We will see you next time on the Chris Rose Rotation, a part of Jomboy Media.